The storm does not always come to destroy. Sometimes it comes to reveal what has been hidden for years. And sometimes the hardest storms arrive in the form of addiction. Many people think addiction is only darkness, only failure, only a sign that life has fallen apart. But there is a deeper layer that most never talk about, a layer where struggle becomes a message and pain becomes a doorway. In this video, we will walk into that layer together. Today, you will learn why some of the most spiritually sensitive people experience battles that others never face. You will hear how addiction has been described in spiritual studies as a gateway to awakening, not just destruction. You will discover the lesser-known truth that many great spiritual leaders, thinkers, and transformed individuals found God not in their strengths, but in the collapse of their own control. And you will hear why some people say their deepest turning point did not happen during peace, but during their most destructive habits. Throughout this video, we will explore a question that many fear to ask. Could addiction be a signal, a nudge, a message that tries to redirect a life that has drifted far away from its real calling? You will learn why certain people are more sensitive to emotional wounds, spiritual needs, and inner emptiness, and how these qualities can make them more likely to fall into addiction. But those same qualities also make them more receptive to spiritual breakthroughs. You will hear about research that shows addiction has a spiritual dimension often ignored in mainstream discussions. You will hear how people in recovery describe moments that feel like a voice calling them back, moments they could not explain with logic alone. And you will understand why some individuals say they only heard God clearly when everything else collapsed around them. By the end of this video, you will see addiction through a different lens, not as a punishment, not as a sign of weakness, but as a place where the soul becomes desperate enough to seek truth, to seek healing, to seek something greater than human strength. You will understand why those who struggle deeply often rise with greater clarity, greater empathy, and a stronger sense of purpose. And you will understand the silent message that lies beneath the chaos. Stay with me until the end, because the final part of this video is where everything connects. You will see the journey not as a fall, but as a calling. You will see that the pain you carry may hold a direction you have not noticed before, and you will walk away with a sense of hope that feels real, not forced. Thank you for being here. Welcome to our channel, where we explore deep human questions with honesty, clarity, and a calm voice that speaks to the heart. If you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and join us on this journey. There is a part of addiction that most people never see. The symptoms are visible, but the reasons behind them often stay buried under layers of silence and shame. Addiction can look like a habit, a craving, a loss of control, but underneath, there is usually something deeper, a quiet emptiness that a person has been carrying for years, a longing for comfort, a hunger for meaning, a desire to feel whole in a world that keeps tearing pieces away. Many people who fall into addiction are not weak. They are sensitive. They feel life more intensely. They notice the weight of loneliness, rejection, and disappointment in ways others overlook. When life becomes overwhelming, the body reaches for relief, but the soul reaches for something else entirely. It reaches for connection, purpose, and belonging. And when these needs are ignored, addiction steps in as a temporary substitute. It tries to fill a space that was never meant to be filled with substances or behaviors. Spiritual research has shown that addiction cannot be understood only as a physical or psychological issue. There is a spiritual dimension that shapes the struggle. Studies in fields like OA Text, MDPI, and ResearchGate highlight that many people with addictions describe a deep inner conflict. a sense of separation from themselves, and a feeling of being disconnected from something greater. These are not scientific symptoms. These are spiritual wounds. They create a gap between who a person is and who they were meant to become. When the gap widens, the pain becomes harder to ignore. Some begin seeking comfort in destructive ways, not because they enjoy the damage, but because they do not know where else to turn. Yet hidden inside this struggle is a kind of signal, a pull, a voice that grows louder the deeper someone falls. This voice does not come from the addiction itself. It comes from the space the addiction exposes. The pain begins to speak. It starts to ask questions that were never asked before. Why does this hurt so much? What am I running from? What am I trying to silence? These questions feel heavy, but they also carry a strange clarity. They point to something missing, something forgotten, something waiting. In many spiritual studies, addiction is described as a crisis moment, a moment where the soul tries to break through the noise. This is why so many people say their lowest point became the moment they started hearing truth more clearly. The struggle forces everything fake to fall away. Only what is real remains. In that raw and vulnerable place, the heart becomes open in a new way. The pain stops being an enemy and starts becoming a signal, a wake-up call, asking the person to look deeper, to return to themselves, and to listen to the voice they have ignored for too long. There is a belief found in many faith traditions that God does not only speak in moments of peace. Sometimes the clearest messages come through the cracks in a person's life. When everything is calm, we rely on our own strength. We stay busy, distracted, confident that we can handle everything alone. But when life breaks open, when addiction shakes a person to their core, something shifts. The walls fall, the masks fall, the pride falls, and in that collapse, a new kind of openness appears. Christian teachings often describe this moment as a turning point. Not because God wants people to suffer, but because suffering exposes what comfort hides in peaceful moments. It is easy to forget the need for something greater, but in trouble, many people begin to seek, to question, and to reach beyond their own power. They start to see that their strength is not enough, their habits are not enough, and their attempts to control life are not enough. The struggle forces them to look in a direction they have avoided for years. There are countless stories where people say that their addiction brought them to a place where they finally cried out to God, not politely, not casually, but from a raw and desperate space inside them, a place they did not know existed. This cry is not weakness. It is honesty. It is the soul speaking without filters. And many faith-based writers describe this as the moment when God's presence becomes louder, not because he was silent before, but because the person was never quiet enough to hear. In this sense, addiction can become a doorway, not a doorway anyone wants, but a doorway that forces a person to stop running. The brokenness slows them down. The guilt, the exhaustion, the fear. These are not punishments. They are signals that the life they are living is too small for the person they were meant to become. And when someone reaches a breaking point, they often begin to search for something solid, something real, something that does not disappear when life gets heavy. Many spiritual perspectives, including those discussed in teachings from Christ and culture, suggest that God can use the very things that feel like failures to pull someone closer. The broken place becomes the meeting place. The pain becomes the conversation starter. The emptiness becomes an invitation. Addiction strips away the noise and leaves a person standing face to face with their deepest questions, questions they cannot avoid anymore. In that vulnerable space, a person becomes more aware of the voice they ignored for years, the voice that whispered while life was loud, the voice that waited behind every distraction. And when everything else collapses, that is the moment someone becomes quiet enough, desperate enough, and open enough to finally hear it. There are moments inside addiction that feel confusing at first. A person may not understand why their old ways of coping stop working. They may not understand why the escape that once felt comforting suddenly feels empty, yet these moments can be signs of something shifting deep inside. When the soul begins to hunger for meaning, it often shows up as restlessness. The things that once numbed the pain no longer satisfy. The distraction loses its grip. The thrill fades, and a quiet longing begins to grow. This longing is not for the substance or the behavior. It is for something real, something steady, something that speaks to the heart in a way addiction never could. Another sign is the repeated breakdown of self-reliance. Many people try to manage addiction with willpower. They promise themselves they will stop, they swear they will change, they attempt to control the urges through sheer strength, but time after time the cycle repeats. This failure is painful, but it holds meaning. When a person reaches the end of their own strength, a new awareness begins to rise. They start to see that their own power is limited, that their attempts to handle life alone are not enough. This realization can feel defeating, but it also opens the door to a deeper truth. Real change often begins where human strength ends. With this comes a new sense of humility. The words, "I cannot do this alone," are difficult to say, but they carry incredible spiritual weight. They come from a place of honesty, not weakness. They signal that the person is no longer pretending to have everything under control. They are no longer hiding from the truth. Humility softens the heart. It creates space for guidance, support, and connection. It allows the person to reach out, to ask for help, and to open themselves to a power greater than their own. Faith-based recovery programs have long recognized this moment as a turning point. They do not focus only on breaking the habit. They speak to the whole person, the body, the mind, and the spirit. Many of these programs teach that spiritual transformation is not an optional step. It is central to healing. They emphasize prayer, reflection, surrender, and connection with something greater. They teach that recovery is not just about removing addiction, it is about restoring the soul. When someone begins to feel these subtle shifts, a hunger for meaning, the collapse of self-reliance, a new humility, it can be a sign that a deeper voice is trying to reach them. Each sign pulls them away from the old life and closer to a truth they have ignored for years. When a person begins to sense that something deeper is happening within their struggle, the first response is often resistance. The instinct is to fight the feeling, to push it away, to pretend that nothing important is happening. But listening instead of fighting can shift everything. Listening means paying attention to the thoughts that rise in quiet moments. It means noticing the discomfort instead of running from it. It means allowing the questions to surface without shutting them down out of fear. When someone truly listens, they begin to hear the difference between the voice of addiction and the voice that is calling them towards something better. A second response is to stop hiding. Addiction thrives in secrecy. It grows in the dark corners of a person's life where honesty is avoided. But when someone steps into the light, even just a little, the grip of the addiction begins to weaken. Stopping the hiding does not mean confessing to the whole world. It means being truthful with oneself. It means admitting the struggle without excuses. It means saying the words that were avoided for years. This is real. This is affecting me. This is not under my control anymore. That honesty opens space for change to begin. Acknowledging the addiction is not about shame, it is about acceptance. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It means recognizing what is happening without denial. It means seeing the pattern for what it is. And beyond acknowledging the addiction, there is another part to acknowledge the message within it. Addiction is not random. It is not meaningless. It reveals wounds, unmet needs, and forgotten truths. By acknowledging the message, a person begins to understand that something inside them has been trying to speak for a long time. This is the moment to ask a powerful question. What is God drawing me to see in this? Asking this question opens a door. It shifts the perspective from guilt to discovery. It turns the struggle into a conversation. Each answer that rises may feel small at first, but small answers lead to deeper truths. The question becomes a compass, guiding the person toward understanding and clarity. Responding to the message also means seeking peace instead of chaos. Many people turn to addiction to escape pain, but real peace is different from escape. Peace calms the heart. Peace strengthens the mind. Peace draws a person closer to their true self. Seeking peace can mean slowing down, breathing deeply, praying, or reaching out for support. Seeking connection is another step. Connection builds strength. It allows a person to feel seen, heard, and supported. And seeking purpose fills the empty places that addiction tried to cover. As these small responses grow, the message becomes clearer and the path forward begins to open in a new way. There is a point in the journey where the struggle begins to reveal something unexpected. The very battle that once felt like a curse starts to produce new insight. When a person walks through addiction and survives the weight of it, they often come out seeing the world differently. They understand pain in a way others do not. They recognize the quiet suffering that hides behind people's smiles. They feel compassion more deeply because they know what it is like to break, to fall, and to climb back up with trembling hands. This compassion is not learned from books or teachings. It is carved into the heart by experience. Many people who rise from addiction describe a sense of mission growing inside them. The same struggle that once made them feel lost begins to guide them toward a purpose. They no longer see their past as something to hide. They see it as something that gives them strength. Their story becomes a source of hope for others who feel trapped. Their experiences, once filled with shame, become tools that allow them to understand, mentor, and uplift people who are walking the same dark path. They start to feel that their life is meant for something more than the cycle they escaped. Stronger faith often grows in the place where fear used to live. When someone has reached the lowest point and felt darkness closing in, the moment they sense even a small light becomes powerful. That light becomes a reminder that they were never fully abandoned. Faith is not just belief, it becomes a lived experience. It becomes the memory of how they survived nights they thought would destroy them. It becomes the quiet strength that keeps them steady when temptation returns. This faith does not come easily. It grows slowly, shaped by every failure, every cry, every moment of honesty. Spiritual and recovery research has long shown that people who incorporate spirituality into their healing often have better outcomes. Studies highlight that when individuals feel connected to something greater, they develop a stronger sense of purpose, resilience, and hope. This connection helps them face emotional wounds without collapsing. It gives them a reason to keep moving forward when the old habits try to pull them back. Spiritual practices, reflection, prayer, meditation, community support create stability in places where willpower alone cannot. Even the lost time, the painful years, and the mistakes do not have to remain empty. They can be reshaped into wisdom. The past becomes a teacher instead of a chain. The pain becomes a source of strength instead of a source of shame. The struggle becomes the foundation on which a new self is built. Through this transformation, the person discovers that nothing was wasted. Every moment prepared them for a life that feels more honest, more grounded, and more meaningful than ever before. There comes a moment when the heart needs more than explanation. It needs an invitation, not an invitation to a perfect life, not an invitation to immediate change, but an invitation to see the struggle through a different lens. When someone is facing addiction or watching a loved one crumble under its weight, it is easy to believe that everything happening is pointless. It is easy to assume that the pain is random, that the suffering has no direction, that life has simply taken a cruel turn. But there is another possibility that deserves to be considered. The possibility that something meaningful is unfolding beneath the chaos. If you are in addiction, or if someone close to you is battling this darkness, pause for a moment and allow this thought to settle. This may not be random. This may not be an accident. This may not be wasted suffering. Many people discover, sometimes slowly and sometimes all at once, that the very struggle they hated became the place where something sacred began to speak. It is often in the middle of the mess, not after escaping it, that the first signs of something greater appear. A sudden clarity, a quiet whisper in the mind, a feeling that refuses to be ignored, a pull toward honesty, a desire for help, a longing for peace. This is where openness matters. Openness is not a dramatic act. It is a gentle shift inside. It is allowing the possibility that God's voice might be reaching through the noise. It is giving yourself permission to explore the thought that there is meaning hidden in your pain. Openness means lowering the walls just enough for light to enter. It means no longer dismissing the feelings that rise during the darkest nights. It means letting yourself consider that there is a message even if you do not fully understand it yet. The willingness to follow where this voice leads does not require grand decisions. It often begins with small steps, a quiet moment of honesty, a simple prayer, a conversation you were afraid to start, a willingness to surrender what you cannot control. These steps create space for something new to enter your life. They pull you out of the silence and into a place where guidance begins to appear. The path may not be clear at first, but the first step rarely is. For someone observing a loved one in addiction, this invitation is just as important. You may feel helpless, frustrated, or scared, but you can hold space for the possibility that their suffering is not without purpose. You can offer patience, presence, and compassion. You can encourage them gently toward openness, toward reflection, toward faith. The journey becomes lighter when someone walks beside you, even in silence. As this invitation grows, the heart becomes more sensitive to the signals it once ignored. The struggle becomes a place where truth can finally be heard. The pain becomes a doorway instead of a wall, and the person begins to sense that there is something waiting on the other side. In the end, the message is simple but powerful. Addiction may not be the end of your story. It might be the place where God is trying to reach you more clearly than ever before. The struggle that felt like a curse may be the very ground where something sacred is growing. The wounds you carry, the confusion you face, the nights that feel endless, all of it may hold a quiet message meant only for you. Many of God's chosen ones have walked through darkness before they ever stepped into light, and your journey may be part of that same path. As you move forward, hold on to this calm hope. There is purpose hidden inside your pain. There is healing waiting beneath the surface. There is a voice in the storm, and it is not there to break you. It is there to guide you, to pull you closer, and to show you the strength you forgot you had. You do not need to rush. You do not need to force change. Just take one gentle step at a time. Listen more deeply. Reflect more honestly. Allow the message within your struggle to unfold in its own way. If this video spoke to you or helped you see your journey differently, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us reach more people who need a moment of clarity and a message of hope. Thank you for being here. You are not alone, and your path still holds meaning.